Because I'm not a mathematician. I know you didn't know that about me, but I'm not a mathematician. I can't begin to tell you how long I would need to work to make $1 billion. And by now, we know that no one becomes a billionaire on their own. Generally, it means a lot of people around them have been undervalued and underpaid, and I've spent a lot of time on this show making fun of billionaires and their little penis rockets, but today I am actually changing my tune because I have some very nice things to say about one very specific billionaire. It's true. I have some good choice words for billionaire Mackenzie Scott. It was recently revealed that Mackenzie Scott gave away over $7 billion in 2025 alone. Her ex-husband, Jeff Bezos, on the other hand, did not give away nearly enough money to get an article written about him. But she didn't just start her giving in 2025. Since 2019, she's given away over $26 billion. Her beneficiaries include historically Black colleges and organizations fighting social injustice and climate change. The best part, the donations seem to come with no strings attached. I'll start supporting billionaires as soon as more billionaires start acting like Mackenzie. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest this week is financial journalist and author of the new book, 1929, Inside the Greatest Crash in Wall Street History and How It Shattered a Nation, Andrew Ross Sorkin. I just feel like he knows everything about everything. I could talk to him every single day. And while I have you here captured, maybe it's cold outside right now, but I'll tell you what, spring is coming, and I just added spring dates, fresh, green spring dates to my How to Survive Menopause tour. Go to samanthab.com, see if I'm coming to your neck of the woods. Until then, take a listen, and as always, make good choices.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fan of yours, and I'm a fan of the Peloton that's behind you right now. I could bake and then get on the Peloton, try to work off whatever I've baked.
This is actually, let's be branding specific. This is a SoulCycle bike, Mr. Sorkin.
Is this a sponsor? Is this an influencer situation?
Could you imagine? Yeah, I'm a real influencer. And I literally, in the call prior, just offered it for free to someone.
You've given away the bike.
I don't know if they'll accept, because they understand, as I do, that it really is just a thing for you to put your dry cleaning on when it comes in. You know what I mean? Just a place to rest it.
That's what happened to ours. That's what happened to ours. And then I think we sold it back or something.
You did?
Well, we got a Peloton during the pandemic. Are we recording? We can record. We got one during the pandemic. There was a pandemic purchase.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we used it a little bit during the pandemic, and then
a little bit.
It became a hanger. Clothing.
Just a wonderful, it's just a sculpture. It's just a sculpture that I have in my house that takes up an inordinate amount of space that also weighs 600 pounds.
Why did you go SoulCycle over Peloton?
That's just a tradition in my life. Okay. I think I prefer, this is, again, I'm not an influencer. I think that the music at SoulCycle is better.
DJ?
The vibe is a little bit more, as you know, I'm a huge EDM fan. I'm always at festival, I do the festival circuit.
Do you have candles going behind the bike there? What do you, because they do that.
Crystals, candles. No, they do all that stuff. I don't do any of it. And that's why it's just a sculpture that lives here absolutely rent-free that I'm offering to anybody who will.
What do you think it costs? What do you think it costs to remove from said home of yours?
Less money than a piano, but I don't care. Once it's out, I don't have anything to do with it. It's free of charge for anyone who's willing, who has a friend with a truck.
Put that thing on Craigslist. I think somebody with a U-Haul will come by.
Do you want people coming to your house who you met on Craigslist? I don't know.
No, we did that once.
Complicated.
We did that once. Yes.
How did that go?
Okay, we had a piece of furniture about
Okay.
maybe 8 or 10 years ago. We were moving, and we did that.
did it.
And yeah, my
People
wife and
chose
I,
it.
we did it, and they came in, and we did. If I recall, we did a little bit of sleuthing, some Googling about who they were before, and they seemed like a decent family, and they had a story, that they were looking. It was some kid stuff and things like that.
You're really just looking for them to not be totally anonymous. You just want to, there needs to be like a little bit of accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have okay. Well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of your work.
Stop lying.
I follow you. I read you religiously.
I don't believe a word.
It's 100% true. I watch all your round tables and all the things that you do.
Oh God.
I do. I'm sorry. That's true. I'm going to come to your apartment. I'm going to take your furniture. I hear it's free for anyone who has a truck. And I love your new book. I guess it's, when did you release this book? Okay, I'm going to read the title for people if they haven't read it. 1929. Wow. Inside the greatest crash in Wall Street history and how it shattered a nation. I couldn't remember it all at once. But 1929.
The subtitle's long.
The subtitle's long. 1929.
You go short with the main title.
That's right.
And then you go long with the subtitle.
That's right. When did you release it? In the fall?
Just a couple months ago. So October, in October. Right. Actually, the month of, not that we have an anniversary or commemorate, or we definitely don't celebrate the crash of 1929, but in the month of, which is the famous October period of time where the market went very down.
Very down. And
very down.
I think it's one of those events that people know in fits and starts. Like they know just a tiny little bit. They sort of have like a picture of it in their minds. But this is this is detail. This is like this is the most detailed depiction of what happened.
But you're describing me though, which is when I started this project. The reason I wanted to write the book was because I had this sort of very, little understanding. I just thought there was some terrible thing that happened. Everyone would always talk about 1929 being so horrible. People would ask me about it. I wouldn't have good answers. And I really wanted to understand, who the people were, what they were saying to each other, what they felt, who they were married to, what their husbands and wives were saying. Yes. And so I wanted to put you in the room. Those are the books that I always loved reading, frankly, over. And so that was what this was all about.
Yes. And so, okay, is it correct? My understanding is that this book took almost 8 years to write. Is this correct? Is this accurate?
It is sadly, my wife will tell you it took that long, possibly longer.
Almost a decade to write this book. Now, I want to go back in time to almost a decade ago.
Yeah.
That, what your headspace was 8 years ago when you initiated this process and you're like, this is very interesting. I just feel like people don't really understand. And now the world is so different.
Right. So what was going on 8 years ago? So, well, 8 years ago, I went on, I'm like a super geek. I went on a vacation and wanted to understand about 1929. And I downloaded a whole bunch of books to my Kindle and bought a couple about this period because I wanted to understand what was going on. And I read them, and there's some fabulous books as well. Mm-hmm. But as I was saying, I never felt like I understood who the people were and what was really happening. And I thought, maybe, has anyone written that book that way? Is there a way to do that? Could you find the material, the underlying sort of diaries and memos and letters and all of the sort of things you'd need to sort of be able to get that kind of granular detail? And then I happened to be up at Harvard University giving a lecture, and I got there early, and I walked in the library and started asking for these boxes, and I'm going through the boxes. Anyway, I thought, this is doable. I thought this would be like a 2 or 3 year project. I did not envision this being as torturously long as it was, nor did I envision the parallels necessarily with our world today. That was not even on the on the bingo card for me when I
know.
started this.
Did you, when you dropped the book, or when, when the world
You
started to,
dropped
when
the book. That's
dropped,
such
when you dropped it,
yeah, mic drop for those who are listening.
were you like, I think I might be Nostradamus. Like, I am just actually you're launching the book at the perfect time, because there are parallels to the experience we're having of not, for the regular layperson.
Yes.
Observable chaos in the markets, observable, like we're feeling.
So I think in a weird way, we always think this, to be honest with you. So I remember back in 2021, so this is middle of the pandemic. I don't know if you remember, there was this whole like Gamestop frenzy.
Sure.
Everybody was going crazy. There was the memification of stocks. People were buying up AMC, the movie theater chain, and it was wild. Yep. And I remember in that moment thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I could publish this book right now. This is exactly what was happening in 1929. Wow. And then, here we are a couple years later, and, President Trump announces the tariffs, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's exactly what happened in 1930 in this book.
Right.
And so I think in a way, sort of history continues to repeat over and over again.
Right. I mean, that's not encouraging. But it doesn't sound good.
But it doesn't have, I will say this, I think a lot of people go, oh, there's all these parallels, and there are, and we can talk about them, but there are also a lot of differences. And one of the hopefully takeaways of the book, beyond hopefully just, the read of understanding these people and being in it and feeling like you're living in 1929, both in the good way, because it was sort of this amazing Gilded Age, and then obviously this terrible way, which is everything falling apart. It wasn't preordained. I mean, I think a lot of people think, oh, there's this crash in October 1929, and all of a sudden there's this Great Depression, and we have 25% unemployment. And that's not really true. Right. That's not really what happened. It was sort of the October of 29 was sort of the first domino of a series of dominoes, many of which had nothing to do with the market and were really more policy choices, either things that President Hoover was doing, what Congress was doing, what the Federal Reserve was doing. So there was a whole bunch of things that happened that sort of led to what turned out to be a cataclysmic disaster.
What do you think are there comparisons that people are drawing between the period of time you describe in your book and the present day, which you think are actually not correct?
Well, it's not that it's not correct. It's that you look at today and you go, okay, there seems like there's a lot of euphoria.
Right.
And there was a lot of euphoria back then. You hear this phrase, democratizing finance. So every time, like Robinhood or one of these sure. Online platforms, everyone's like, oh, we have to get more access, give people more access. And there is this sort of like lottery ticket thing going on today. That was going on then. But the big difference is actually, there was no SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. There was no insider trading rules. Back then, there was such manipulation. They were paying off the journalists. They were almost like, think about it, like there were moments at which it would be like a group of people would get together and literally run a plan as if they had like actors on the floor of the stock exchange, with one guy saying, I'll bid 120, I'll bid 140, I'll bid 160, and they're all in cahoots with each other. I mean, and
don't give the Donald Trump family any ideas. Don't
By the way,
tell them to read this book.
I hate to tell you, that kind of thing, actually, it's not happening in the stock exchange per se today, because there are rules against that. But it is happening, online in a certain way. Not just on Reddit, but in places like, there are these Telegram, chat groups where people are getting together, or Signal groups. I mean, there are pump and dump schemes happening, especially in sort of like crypto land.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I feel you.
What you're telling me now is that you believe that we still have meaningful oversight. Tell me.
I like to think we have oversight, but I think one of the things that's happening.
Make me feel good.
No. So look, back then, right, there were no rules. It was all And by the way, the other thing that was interesting about that period, beyond there being no rules in the Wild West, there wasn't even a sense from a moral perspective that what was taking place was wrong. So here we are with hindsight,
Right.
100 years later, and we're like, oh my God, you would never do something like that.
Right.
But even back then, and I looked for it hard, I was hoping I was going to find some individuals who objected to these practices, contemporaneously, where they thought, or someone even, some Wall Street trader who was like, I don't do that because I'm pure, and these people are terrible. They didn't do that because the weirdest part about the stock market, I think, is that ultimately it's this strange, and I think it was the way they thought about it back then, and to some degree how people think about it today. It's a battle of wits, right? Everybody thinks they're smarter than the other person. Whoever's buying a stock in the moment has to think that they're smarter than the person selling them the stock. And whoever's selling the stock in that moment has to think that they are smarter than the person that's buying it from them. And so back then, especially because there were no rules, from a morality perspective, I think people thought that this was just another way to outwit the other side, meaning one group was somehow smarter through manipulation than the other group. And so everybody was just trying to manipulate each other.
That feels so consistent to me with human nature. And also, I think the way that because as a regular person who just sort of like is very
You're not
Canadian.
regular.
No,
You're
I'm
not regular.
I'm going to look at what you see behind you and tell me that again. But just as a person who's really kind of like fiscally responsible, financially quite conservative, more like I think about I'm a pragmatic Canadian person who just tries to do the right thing, doesn't profess to have any expertise, not going to take any wild swings at things, truly. It's hard not to feel that you are thought of as such a normie and a chump and someone who can't. And I don't want to play with those rules. Like, I don't want to engage with those rules, but it's hard not to feel right now that our best interests are not forefront in the minds of our political leaders. That's just a statement. That's
By the way,
really
and I don't disagree with the statement. I think actually the statement's super true because the other piece of this is right now there's a move afoot to effectively take some of the guardrails off.
Yes.
I mean, that's the piece that's so interesting, which is we put all these guardrails on after the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. We implemented the insider trading. We created an SEC. By the way, back then, banks didn't have to actually keep a certain amount of money on tap at any point. There were regulations around banks. And now here we are, having tried to fix all of this, we're now sort of dismantling at least some of it. And then there's a question what that ultimately is going to do.
Yeah, it's chilling, actually. And I don't know that we don't seem to, well, I mean, this is just a kind of a big kind of question for all of humanity. Why can't we learn from history? What in the world makes us not able to see that guardrails are in place for a reason? Like, why don't we want to be protective? Why don't we have the political will to step in and be a barrier to dismantling these?
Because, well, I think they didn't call it FOMO back then in 1929, but because I think that the human condition has some semblance or element of FOMO. Right. Some people call that greed, by the way. Right. But, did you ever see the movie Wall Street 2?
Wall Street 2?
Not as good as Wall Street. Not as good as Wall Street 1. Shia LaBeouf was the star of the movie. Okay. And in the movie, it was also directed by Oliver Stone. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in it, and I think I'm going to get the actors wrong, but there's a moment where one of the actors asks the other one, "What's your number?" As in, like, what is the number that you would need? How much money would you have to have to feel satisfied, to feel enough, to feel financial independence or whatever? Yeah. And there's sort of this like great dramatic pause, and the guy looks back at him and goes, "More." And to me, that is like the most sort of instructive moment about how, for better or worse, and I think it's very human. I don't think it's necessarily, I don't judge it and say, oh, that's some greedy person. I mean, I can judge it and say that, but
sure.
I think that that's, I think people want more. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses or the.
Sure. And they also just want to they just want to live in a mortgage-free home.
They want to live in a mortgage-free home. But I also think, and I don't know if you agree with this, I think that social media has shifted our own sense of what we want. I think it's changed this whole sort of even idea of FOMO. I think it's created a sort of remarkable resentment, in part because it's actually made it even so stark, the distinction between what people at the super, super top are doing, and what the rest of us are doing on any given day.
Yeah, and it has made that so stark globally too. Like everybody is able to see what they do not have and cannot ever imagine acquiring. And it's 24/7. It's not like watching, like I do remember as a kid growing up and watching The Cosby Show. I mean, okay, for better or for worse. It was an important show for me growing up, but it was aspirational at the time.
Loved it. Same.
Maybe that's a bad example, but like, oh my God, they live in a brownstone in New York.
It was amazing. Yes.
Doctor, like,
yes.
Aspiration was very much a part of, what I wanted to emulate people that I saw on TV, but TV was 22 minutes. TV was 22 minutes in the evening with some commercials sprinkled in, and we all learned all the jingles to all the commercials. And my mother was like, you can't just shop your way to happiness. Like it was, it was like a big conversation in the home. And now it is a torrent. It is a fire hose in your eyeballs every time you pick up your phone. Did you read the op-ed? I'm sure you did. I'm sure you read
Which
the
one?
Times from back to back.
Back to back.
It meant a lot to me, actually. Sometimes they really hit you, and it was written by someone who put their phone in black and white mode to see if it would reduce their pleasure. And it works.
By the way, I've done it.
I did it too.
And what do you think?
Immediate.
It's immediate. But did you stick with it?
No, I couldn't. Because it's my daughter's 20th birthday. And I knew that I needed to buy her some presents. And I couldn't look at anything in black and white. I actually had an aversion to looking at birthday gifts in black and white mode. But I am going back to it.
Okay, but do you think, so I grew up in a family where frugality was like a thing. Like being frugal.
Very much, yes.
We respected frugality. Like that was... So I wonder today, there's a whole debate going on around affordability and, how much things cost, but also people's own expectation of what they should or shouldn't have. So I have a son, 15 years old, who was complaining to me about the price of Uber Eats. So now we're talking about having food delivered to your house
by a grown human being whose job it is
by another grown human being. But so we have a couple of things going on. So in my house, though, back in the day, we were not ordering in food to our house from a restaurant to begin with, and we weren't like doing it from an app like constantly. Maybe like once a month we would, get a pizza and maybe it would be delivered. But it was just different. But and as a result, it costs more if you are, not willing to cook at home. If you're gonna go out constantly and be ordering food to your home. And so is that affordability or is that a different expectation about, but it may very well be that that's where society has moved, meaning that these become this is like a social question, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's everywhere. It's everything everywhere all at once. Because when you're talking too about affordability, we're talking about people who couldn't imagine ordering Uber, like who are like, what do you mean? I can order on my phone? Like, I can order a chicken parm to my home? I thought it was just, it's everything and everywhere, and I don't know how to even struggle with it, except that I know that the conversation about what is enough comes up all the time. Like, what is necessary for happiness? What needs need to be met for you to be a complete person? And I have it with my kids a lot, and they don't know what I'm talking about. They're like, yeah, but I have to get something from Sephora right now.
And do they think that they think that the Sephora is filling a hole? Like, I recognize that when you talk about enough, for me at least, it's like I'm always like, what's enough for me? Not money, but what's in, like, what does it mean to be a good dad? What does it mean to be good at my job? By the way, I've written this book. I'm super proud of the book. I don't feel like I'm enough.
It's not like I don't think there's any answer to that question.
Right? Like, I'm still trying. I don't know. Yeah. We're all trying.
100%. 100%. Like, I don't know that there's like a finite answer to it. There's a finite answer to maybe a couple of the questions that kind of fall into that bucket. Like, okay, well, how much money is enough for you to live on comfortably and never work again? And
but what about water skiing behind the boats?
Sure.
Right, no, I'm joking.
I've got to be able to. I mean, water skiing is obviously critical. We're not having fun unless we're making a human pyramid on water skis.
Just want to put that out there. How many boats do you need to water ski behind? But
actually, the one person who I had the best financial conversation of my life ever with was Glenn Beck.
Really?
Go figure.
Oh, hold on. So tell me why.
I had a single conversation with him years and years and years ago when he was in that like brief phase of, I'm trying to reform myself. And
yeah.
I was less cynical then. And I was like, oh, well, that's good. Maybe we should be magnanimous and have these conversations across deep, like an abyss of a divide. And it was a really fruitful and actually very interesting conversation, despite what everyone around me thought. But it was meaningful for me because we did have a private conversation, and he said, you need to figure out what your number is in life, that you can just walk away from everything and you'll be totally fine with that number. And when you hit that number, you have to walk away. You have to. You have to that's a compact that you make with yourself, shake your own hand, promise yourself that when you hit that number, you will walk away from everything and you will never, ever look back. And I did.
Wow.
And he was right. He was 100% right.
So, okay. So first of all, congratulations, because it sounds like you hit the number.
I did. I mean, I'm very, very lucky. Like, it was, like very much luck and not strategy, not something intelligent that I did. Like, it just was the result of the choices that I made. No genius involved whatsoever. Got very lucky. And he did not do that. And he
meaning he had put a number out there and then he kept going?
He made a number for himself and he just kept going. And then he couldn't stop. And he actually couldn't grab it back. He couldn't scrabble it back. And you can see the results of that in just like whatever grift he's running now. I mean, it's pretty terrible. It's pretty sad, actually. But like, it really was the best advice anyone ever gave me. So I thank you, Glenn Beck. I mean, this is okay. So what do you make of? I just think that legalized gambling, like legalized advertising for gambling, sports betting, the ubiquity of it now, how normalized it has been that celebrities now encourage people to like running sports bets. I think that is degrading us in a way that I would have predicted.
Look, I feel like I've lost this fight because for the past decade, or more as all these conversations about legalized gambling came up, I was always sort of on the side that this was not a good social idea.
No.
And, by the way, the other element of it that's sort of layer on top of that today is these prediction markets where people are now betting not just on sports, but on the news, on what's going to happen in politics, on all sorts of things. Interestingly, and I had forgotten about this, a couple weeks ago, I was with my wife and daughter, and the lottery was happening, and it had gotten like to $1.5 billion or something like this. And we're at the supermarket, and the cashier says, "Do you want to buy a lottery ticket? It's at this number." And we're like, you know what? Maybe we should do that. And so we bought, I think, 2 or 3. Of course, we lost because it's just it's a tax on the stupid, including myself. But interestingly, I'd gone and put out my credit card to buy the lottery tickets.
Okay.
And she said, you can't use, you need cash. Do you have a debit card or do you have cash? And I remembered I believe most states in America do not allow people to buy lottery tickets with a credit card because they recognize that there is a social problem, which is that if people use a credit card to buy lottery tickets, invariably there'll be lots of people going into extraordinary amounts of debt.
Right.
And to me, that is just such a symbolic example of sort of, we as a society know that gambling unto itself is not good for us.
Right.
We even now have laws to prevent people from using a credit card to buy a lottery ticket, and yet we seem to be completely cool with sports gambling, prediction markets, and the rest.
Yes, sports gambling, prediction markets, and that is because, and I think that because of the ubiquity of the messaging around it, that is really affecting young people in droves. I think this is a big future problem we'll be having in about 5 years. It will unfold, like the devastating impact that it's having on teenage boys. I also have a teenage boy. He's a little older. He's 17. I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old. And he literally asked me he was like, can you just like float me some money for my sports betting? Can you set up an account for me so I can sports bet? And I was like, well, never. This will literally never occur in my life, like over my dead body for sure. But also, I'm never giving you $50 again until you like actually understand what a dollar is, and you have to go earn it now because I can see there's a disconnect.
So how much do you think, though, the sports gambling thing is just like a new form of entertainment for people, meaning it's just another way to entertain themselves, versus I think there's another view that it's become part of this lottery ticket idea around the American dream, which is a lot of people feel like so left out of everything, and that they can't make it work, and that the affordability gap is so high that they need to stretch themselves for this lottery ticket because that's their way out. And that the American dream unto itself, in a way, has almost shifted. It's not even about sort of necessarily just doing better than your parents or something like that, but it's literally about the things that you're scrolling on TikTok over.
Yeah. I mean, all of those things. It's literally. I just think we're so I don't even know if that's a question. It's just both of those things again all at once. It's like, I remember even my dad growing up. He was like, "We got to get a scheme to get rich. I got to invent something."
Right.
Because that seemed possible, or it just was like, I don't want to. Like, there's no path in the work that I do for getting very rich. So why don't I just need to think of something as good as Post-its, and I'll do that.
I think you need to be running an instructional video class on social media.
Me?
Yes,
Never.
that's going to be your get rich quick scheme. That's how they all do it.
What am I going to do? Oh, I'm just going to run SoulCycle classes on my bike back here. I'm just going to.
I think, you could do that,
I want to teach like Canadian pragmatism classes, because my husband and I, he grew up in Steeltown, Canada.
I don't think that's going to be popular on OnlyFans, but maybe.
I do have nice feet. Those are worth something, okay? We have to talk about Venezuela and whatever
Yes, we
other
do.
country we may
We're invading
tomorrow certainly between the time that we record this and when it actually airs, which I think I would often say as a joke, but it doesn't feel like a joke. It doesn't feel like a joke anymore. What is this going to mean for the American economy? Put on your Nostradamus cap.
So it's very interesting. There's sort of a strange paradox to it. So take the drug smuggling piece out of it for a moment, and we'll just talk.
Yes.
We'll just talk economics of oil. So if you were a imperialist conqueror of the world and you wanted more oil, you might want Venezuela. Though the interesting part about this is the cost of actually building the infrastructure that's required to actually rebuild the infrastructure that's needed in Venezuela to take oil out of the ground is extraordinary. And it's not something that happens in a year or two. It's something that happens probably over the course of a decade. So that's the first piece. The second piece is the big American majors, meaning the oil companies that are public, they don't want to walk into a country that they can't control and that they don't really know is stable. So it's
right.
And then the last piece, which is the true economic piece, is, President Trump wants to bring the price of oil down to $50. He's talked about that repeatedly. If that happens, oddly enough, all of the sort of domestic shale producers, so this is in the sort of America first, the Americans that actually work in America and are drilling, it makes the economics of drilling in America worse. Meaning, if you get down to this $50 level, the whole sort of conceit of doing this becomes a lot more complicated for all of those people and could effectively actually even put them out of work potentially. So I think there's a whole sort of bunch of interesting sort of economic cross currents. Look, the other piece of it is it sounds like we're somehow just going to start taking the oil from Venezuela, possibly like just taking it from them. Some people would say we're stealing it from them. I don't know how that's going to work. We're going to effectively, if this is true, we're going to take the oil that was being sanctioned before and going to places like China. We're just going to take it, sell it ourselves, keep the money, and then we say we're going to give the money back to them eventually. That would then sort of give us political leverage over them because they would want the money. By the way, there's other companies I should also mention, like ExxonMobil, that believe they're owed like $20 billion from Venezuela already. So before any of these guys are going to even go into the country, they're going to want their money back first. So there's a lot of things going on here that make it really complicated.
Economic cross currents is such a lyrically beautiful way to say
it. Means like it just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense to me that the markets are just kind of everybody's just going like, yep, everything's going fine. Markets are just going up and up. And
you know what? The hard part, though, is it's really, and this is what most professional investors would tell you, it's really hard to, quote unquote, price the risk of something going totally off the rails. So I think you and I would agree, it feels like, that if we go into a place like Venezuela, it would give license to some degree to President Xi in China to say, you know what, I'm going to take over Taiwan because, it seems like we're cool with that now. Like,
well, it seems like there's no repercussions, like nothing really happens.
Right.
So why wouldn't I?
But it's very hard as an investor, I think, to sit around and go, okay, so maybe the chances just went up that happens. But I don't know if and when that's going to happen. And by the way, maybe China won't do that, or maybe they won't do it for a couple of years. I think that a lot of people invest, and historically, interestingly, actually, if you've invested against the headlines of wars and other things, meaning you've like sold your shares in the market when terrible things have happened, including, by the way, you go back to October 7th in Israel, or just name even a recent moment, 9/11. if you had sold everything, you actually would be on the wrong end of it in the end. I mean, I'm now talking completely against my book about 1929 because obviously to some degree I think people read it as a warning. And it is, and I think it's important to listen to Cassandra's to the degree that you can see the sort of yellow and red flags that people are waving. But if you listen to the Cassandras over the last 100 years, you would not have done as well as if you had just sort of closed your eyes. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think that's a little bit what's going on.
And there isn't much to do in terms of a safe harbor. There isn't too, like if you have retirement savings and you've been very diligent, there isn't much you can do other than just believe.
There's a little bit of belief. I will say this though, if you are, to me, and I don't like to sort of give financial advice per se, but if you are of an age, my parents are now, where they're retired, and you have to start to think about the safety of your money. Yeah, you should not be 100% of your money in Bitcoin and Nvidia. That's not a good idea. So
Bitcoin.
I'm just saying, if you're in your 70s or 80s and that's the way you're doing it, that's a risky way to live.
I mean, I've made a lot of calls to my accountant and I've been like, what if he totally devalues? He's devaluing the US dollar. What am I going to do? Where can I live?
and he probably says, go buy Bitcoin. What does he say?
No, he says, if the value of the dollar plummets, we're all
screwed. Yes.
We're all screwed across the world. Where do you think you're going to go? You're going to go live in the Shire? Are you going to go buy a hobbit hole?
So that's the other part. Life is relative, and I don't know if we always appreciate that point. So for many, many years, I always thought that the bond market, we always talk about how we keep issuing more bonds and how we're ever going to pay them back, $38 trillion of debt. And I always thought there had to be some kind of invisible line where the bond market would say, no mas, we're not doing this anymore. Right. This is insane. I don't believe you people will ever be able to pay me back. And therefore, you're going to have to pay extraordinary interest rates if you want me to loan you money. And for whatever reason, we've never hit this red line. And by the way, we may one day. I mean, I do worry that we will at one point. But so far, all of my worry has been a lot of hand wringing and not a lot of action.
Well, I guess I'm not a total Cassandra, but it does disturb me when I learn about huge swaths of California that are being bought up anonymously by all of these protected, shielded LLCs owned by billionaires in this elaborate way of building a secret society in the middle of the desert that has its own.
I read that story too. By the way, I don't know what's going to happen to that, given that all the wealthy people in California apparently are moving to Austin and Miami. So we'll have to see.
That's right. There's that too. Austin's very busy with all of those Californian expats.
Austin's great, but the traffic is getting to be serious. I was just in Austin. The traffic is becoming a thing.
It really is. Well, why do we, I guess, again, a question as old as time. Why do we so keenly conflate wealth with wisdom? Because that's not helpful.
Why do we do that? Because we measure success oftentimes, unfortunately, in wealth. And I think, people see somebody and they think that's somebody who has had great success. Now, here's an interesting, I don't know if it's interesting to you or not. My uncle, this guy named Steve Sorkin, he is a teacher at Landon School in Bethesda, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And he is, to me, probably the most important family member that I have, because for generations he has created, I walk down the street, by the way, and people walk up to me, that it's the best thing ever, kids who are in his class. Mm. And I think of him as the most successful person in our family by a square mile. Now, by a financial measure, it would not be the case.
Sure.
But I don't think we as a society unfortunately, like there's so many teachers I had that I love, but do people sit around and say, and I think they should, but they don't say, well, that's the most successful person in the world. Or, some doctor who's extraordinary, doesn't get the same kind of credit. Some scientist doesn't get the same kind of credit as the people who create, Amazon or create Google. And now the question is, you could also, now the flip side of that is Apple, Amazon, Google, they have changed more people's lives than Steve Sorkin has or the doctor has, and done extraordinary things. So it's a different kind of success.
Right. Can we, oh gosh, oh my God, we've been talking for such a long time. I find you so interesting, and I just find this conversation so interesting. I know I'm very naive, and again, I have that, there's a part of me that's like, I can just go back to Canada and I can dip beeswax candles for a living, and I'm going to love it. If that's what it comes to, you'll just see me at the farmer's market.
But you know what?
Dipping candles.
But you hit your number and you're enough and you're good to go.
Good to go. I'm going to bake a big baking project for my daughter's birthday. It all feels very good. Do you, can we just talk quickly about hostile takeovers?
Please.
Of television, broadcast entities.
Yes.
Netflix, Paramount, Warner Brothers. It's, to me, the contraction of the entertainment and news industry is so disturbing. But I feel powerless to even contend with it. It gives me chills, actually.
Are you more concerned about the news piece of it? Are you more concerned about just what happens to the entertainment? I mean, look, I'm in the news business. I've done some entertainment work over the years. Yeah, I think they all are interrelated to some degree. They
are interrelated, and there is, of course, I'm extremely distressed about what's happening in the news, but actually also entire libraries of creative content are just kind of disappearing. They're disappearing, and the appetite to make risky new material is waning because everything feels risky, and actually people are very content in a lot of ways to be served pure slop. And I feel like I feel like we're like cruising toward an entertainment industry that more closely resembles the entertainment you might see in WALL-E. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I'll give you one little maybe contrarian take.
Please.
And I don't know if it has any value at all. I do think there's an argument to be made that the decade prior to the last couple of years, where I feel like we've definitely been on this decline that I think we've all seen, really, I mean, just if you time it, it's sort of close to where I don't blame the writer's strike, but it was sort of around then in the pandemic, if you remember. Yeah. That was almost an historical aberration. There was sort of a golden age where you had this moment where entertainment companies, because of streaming, were overspending, and they were buying anything that moved. Mm-hmm. And so you had so much programming. It was just all over the place. And by the way, some of it was good, some of it was fabulous, and some of it was terrible. Mm-hmm. And so if you go back and think about how much entertainment product was out there, when you and I were watching The Cosby Show, compared to now, there's a lot more of it. The other piece of it is there's a lot more people doing arguably interesting things on YouTube, both in the sort of documentary space and other spaces. So as sort of down on things as I am, and I agree there seems to be like a quality problem at the moment more than anything.
It's a little bit hard to find something that checks the boxes in a very specific way. There's not a lot of successions coming down the pike.
I mean, I don't know how often you're on Name Your Streaming Service and you see a bajillion tiles, and we'll be sitting there and I'll be with my wife or my kids and I'll be like, there's nothing to watch.
How
could that be? And you're like, it looks like there's a million things that you could watch. Yeah. And now, we'll we'll turn it off. There's nothing, and we'll be going from service to service to service.
Service to service, and then you're like, ew, I think I'll read my book. Ugh, yuck.
So
Okay.
it happens. It happens.
Let me make a pitch to you. 1929.
Yes.
I think it would make... Anyway, I think it would make a killer television series.
From your lips, I pray. I pray.
Listen.
There's
the
a couple.
characters.
There's a couple of conversations going on right now.
I hope so.
I can only hope. But as you also probably know, period pieces very expensive.
Very expensive to make.
Yes, because of the economics of dressing up sets and creating new fashion and outfits and all the things that are required. So
if you shoot it in from tip to tail in Bulgaria, you'll be able to afford anything. It'll be great. Just trust me. It was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you so much.
This was a ball.
That was Andrew Ross Sorkin, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. We were talking about how you can't buy a lottery ticket with a credit card. Well, it's actually pretty much split. 23 states allow you to buy one on a credit card, and the rest do not. Just doesn't feel like the best idea. Anyway, interesting. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee, and we will see you next week for some more choice words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me, Samantha Bee. The show is produced by Svea Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Ryan Connor. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.